Buffalo Bills are the Super Bowl favorites, but can they live up to those expectations? They added Von Miller, added Kyer Elam, get back Tre'Davious White. Obviously, they got the stud in Josh Allen, but can they finally get over the hurdle and make it to the big game? One of those teams that is going to be playing on the opening Thursday is going to be the Buffalo Bills, and that's where we will start since they are also their division winners last year. They went 11-6, and of course, in case for some reason you forgot or had that unfortunate loss to the Kansas City Chiefs and that crazy ending of a game, but nonetheless, they seem to be a team on a mission as they've had some major moves for a team in Buffalo per se. So let's start with who they lost real quick. Lost tackle Darrell Williams, wide receiver Cole Beasley, also Emmanuel Sanders as well. Also another lineman they technically lost was Cody Ford. Trade him to the Cardinals, I think it was about a week ago for like a low fourth roundish pick. It's short pick. And then also lost defensive lineman Star Ludulele and cornerback Levi Wallace. So those are the notable departures. In regards to who they added, though, they brought in edge rusher Von Miller. That was quite a surprise. Defensive lineman Jordan Phillips. Also brought in Case Keenum because they did lose also Mitch Trubisky, if you want to count him as a notable departure, to fill in that backup role. So they brought in Case Keenum to fill that spot. Also got guard Roger Saffold, and then wide receiver Jamison Crowder from the Jets. And then draft, went and grabbed cornerback Kyer Elam in the first round, and then running back James Cook in the second. So yeah, I know you were very high on James Cook, so obviously I'm sure you love that pick. But nonetheless, is this enough for the Buffalo Bills to just make that final push that they haven't been able to do the last few years and get to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm really high on the Bills this year. Obviously, last year, the season did not end the way that they wanted it to. But if you just want to watch good football, go rewatch that game against the Chiefs. That was probably the most entertaining game of football I've seen in quite some time, maybe since that Chiefs-Rams game in the regular season a couple of years ago when Mahomes was first coming onto the scene. Jared Goff and the Rams were like the top offense with Todd Gurley, and that game was like 54-51. That was an amazing game, and that Bills-Chiefs game might have been better because it was a playoff game. Just the way that it ended was just insane. And for the Bills, obviously, they were on the wrong side of a coin toss, and that really sucks, but they're changing the overtime rules, and I think that might be a bigger change for Buffalo than any of the additions that they've actually made in the offseason, because that coin toss honestly could have been the difference between them winning a Super Bowl and the result that obviously they got. If you're a Bengals fan or a Rams fan, then take this for what you will, because you guys obviously made it to the Super Bowl. But I truly believe the Buffalo Bills were a better team than both of them. And I think if they matched up with both of those teams, I expected them to beat them. I think the only team that was going to be able to compete with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills offense was going to be Kansas City. And I know that the Rams had a really high-powered offense, but I think the difference between a Mahomes and a Stafford would have shown in a game like that. And I think the difference between having weapons like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce on your roster versus Stephon Diggs, who, is an amazing weapon, and Gabriel Davis and all the guys they have over there, once again, amazing. I think just that little edge that the Chiefs had would have been a difference maker in why Kansas City was able to win that, because I don't think those other teams with what it was like 12, 13 seconds left would have been able to do what Kansas City did at the end of that game to force overtime. So I think that Buffalo is an amazing team, and that's before all of the changes they made this offseason. I love the James Cook edition. If you're listening right now, draft James Cook in fantasy. I think he can be a really high impact player. I don't know how much immediately he's going to play because they still have Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, but he is an excellent receiver out of the backfield. And I think starting from day one, he can have value there because neither Singletary or Moss, they're both solid at receiving out of the backfield, but they're not like James Cook in terms of that is one of his major strengths. So I really love the James Cook edition. I think that Gabriel Davis finally getting a season where it seems like he can actually break out. But if Gabriel Davis can truly take hold of that wide receiver 2 spot opposite of Stephon Diggs this season, then I think the Buffalo Bills offense could be incredibly deadly with him developing. And then you add in, like I said, James Cook. So Buffalo, they're a scary team. I think the only thing that really worries me is the loss of Brian Daboll. He was really key to that offensive scheme. We're going to have to see how it changes. They still have elite weapons, so I'm not worried about a major dip in production, but just the familiarity with Brian Daboll and the chemistry that offense had with him. I think that maybe we could see early on in the season some rough patches, but other than that, I'm excited for the Bills. Also, getting guys like Tre'Davious White back healthy, I I think that it's going to be a great season for Buffalo as long as they can stay healthy. And there's a reason they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl as of right now. So I'm really high on Buffalo. I think that they have a really good shot to be the best team in the AFC this year, especially considering a lot of the other powerhouse teams are all kind of loaded into one division, aka the AFC West. So yeah, I like Buffalo a lot. I like the additions they made. They're absolutely Super Bowl contenders. And yeah, I could easily see them winning it.
Anyone that knows the Falls podcast knows I've been a huge Josh Allen fan. So that loss hurt for me a little bit as well, just because that performance you mentioned in the division against the Chiefs, that was one of the, in terms of just Josh Allen, it was a great game and an amazing game, but it was just one of the clutchest. I don't want to say the clutchest, but it's up there if I had to think about it. Performances. I mean, it seemed like every fourth down or key play, it was Josh Allen. Oh, the line's broken. Let me, run right and brush off a guy and then find Gabriel Davis or someone open or make a play with his legs. He was amazing. So the fact that they add Von Miller, I feel like definitely will help them have more of a presence. Maybe Mahomes doesn't have as much time as he does in those instances. Although the fact that the Chiefs lost Tyreek is a huge deal because he was, one of those touchdowns was literally just Tyreek and Mahomes. Like only those two guys can perform what they did there. So now you don't really have to worry about that in terms of him being with Mahomes. We'll see what he does with Miami, which we'll talk about later. Yeah, I think Roger Saffold, I would say he's an upgrade to the interior part of the O-line. Not that it was a weakness. Mitch Morse is still a really good center, and Deion Dawkins is a solid tackle as well. Like you mentioned, the loss of Brian Daboll is very interesting. I'm curious to see if they lean a little bit more on the run game because, granted, they had Josh Allen. You can see why. But it was a little bit too much. Not that you couldn't handle it, but a little bit too much on Josh Allen. That's why we saw games like week 1 last year against Pittsburgh and against Jacksonville with Urban Meyer, where they kind of laid eggs against some pretty athletic defenses that knew what was kind of going to happen and called Buffalo's bluff and just said, we're not worried about your run game at all. So we'll see. Like you mentioned, James Cook, very good back. He'll definitely get work in the receiving game. We'll see if they utilize them in the run game a little bit more now with their new OC. So that's something to look out for. And their defense, I know they were number 1 rated defense last year. I don't think that would say they were the scariest. I think they're just very well coached and a lot of creative things that they do with Leslie Frazier and Coach McDermott. So adding Kaiir Elam, I didn't really get to see him much in preseason. Tough for me to give me a fair evaluation. But obviously, if he can just be solid and then get back Tre'Davious White healthy, and then, like I said, add Von Miller, and then now all these other edge rushers that they've invested in recent years, the Gregory Rousseaus who had moments last year, and Ed Oliver. I think we've kind of seen he's probably just a starter level guy. But hey, maybe he plays a little bit better now that there's more attention diverted. Maybe Vaughn can be more of a mentor to these guys and help because they do like to just rush forward. They rely on the front four a lot and do a lot of creative things on the back end. So yeah, their division is going to be a little bit tougher now that Miami in theory will be better. We'll talk about them later. But yeah, I'm real excited to see if Gabriel Davis can build on that performance, that amazing performance he had in the divisional round. Also, Isaiah McKenzie's been having a really good camp. So it seems like he might be filling in that number 3 receiver type role. And he had some moments last year as well. So we'll see what happens. But I'm with you and I guess the general public. I'm really high in the Buffalo Bills, mainly because of Josh Allen back there. But obviously, the supporting cast very good as well.